So I did mention that I was going to do or like make a separate video on my air compressor setup, and so this is that video. So as I was buying more air tools, I soon realized I needed more power I needed higher airflow, because originally I only had this one. It's a 3 horsepower. It's got about 280 litres per minute in delivered air. So many people confuse the air going into the compressor, like the amount that is sucked into it and the amount that is blown out of it. So sometimes you will see ads for compressors and people will put it's got like 350 litres per minute or whatever, and then you look at the photos and you can see on the stickers this one doesn't give any of that information, but you can then see like an arrow pointing towards something that looks like these cylinders, and that number says, say, then 350. And so that means that the air going into the compressor is 350, but it's not what you actually get to your tools. But this one anyway has 280, something around there, and that was not enough even for like a tiny wire wheel or like a Dremel tool. It was just emptying the tank very quickly. So as I was going to visit my uncle, I saw this the blue tank listed on Marketplace, and I thought, yeah, I can pick it up to get an extra tank, so that I get 50 litres extra, because then obviously you've got more air before the compressor even has to kick on. And then as I was going to the scrapyard, I also found this one. Someone had left it there, and then I asked them and he said, yeah, okay, you can take it. So I took it, not knowing the condition of it, but when I got it home, the engine started up, but it would not build any pressure. And so I took the head apart, and what was wrong with it, these compressors, they've got kind of like blade valves, I think you could call them, or like leaf valves. They're very tiny, very thin blades that work as intake and exhaust valves. So I knew from experience that they are fixable. So but you have to order them, and it's kind of a pain. It's not really easy to get the parts. So what I did was, I wish I could show you this, but I didn't take any pictures of it. But what I did was I just cut up a piece of a feeler gauge, a very thin one. I don't remember exactly which one, but it was not the thinnest and not the thickest. It was somewhere in between, like in one of those sets that you buy. So I cut that up in the right measurements, and I put it in, and yeah, it was building pressure. So that was the only thing that was wrong with it, so to speak. But then I also realized that this connection here was like the connection between this pipe and the head, that was missing, and the pipe was like laying to the side. So then I contacted the warehouse that sells these compressors and asked them for a new pipe and fitting, because they were sold together. And what I received was this pipe, which does not fit, but the connection did fit. But what I managed to do before I got the part was this nut here is part of the original pipe, so I actually managed to crack that. And I wasn't able to get this one off of here and onto that one, because they were kind of like brake lines. So I've just actually temporarily fixed that by putting some sealant in the threads, and then, well, it's been holding up like this for quite a while now. I know it's a whack of a repair, but it's actually holding up. But anyway, none of that is unique or like difficult or anything. It's just a repair and like what I've bought. But what you can also see, by the way, is like this one is missing the air filter, and this one has only one air filter, so I need to order 2 of those. But what I suppose is unique and could be useful to other people is that I now have 2 compressors running together, complementing each other. So the way it works is this one has 2 outlets and this one has 2 outlets. This one only has 1. So I've connected this outlet here only has it only has full pressure, but this one you can regulate the pressure on. So this fitting here I've connected to my the shop hose. So that's what I'm using for my, sorry about the mess, I'm doing some work, but that's what I'm using for my air tools because they don't run at full pressure. And then I've got this Y connection here with one line going to this compressor, and then the other end of that one, you can see here, is going like feeding this blue tank. And so when you use up the air, you can actually hear the pressure evening out between all of the tanks, which is what you want really. So I know some of these valves in here, they are one-way valves, so you can only get air out of it but not into it. But I don't know actually if that's the way these work, but the way I've got it set up is I've got the inlets on the sides here. So yeah, the pressure is evening out, which means that you don't get the problem that I've seen some other people get, that it's only random which compressor kicks on, and then like you only get to use one compressor despite having 2. I frankly don't know how that happens, but I've seen some people on YouTube get that problem. I haven't got that problem, luckily, so I don't know actually how to solve it if you do get it, but I suspect it might have something to do with that, what I mentioned about some outlets only being one way or something. And in my specific case, this bigger one has it kicks on sooner than this one does. I don't know exactly at what pressure, but when you just use a bit of air or like an air tool intermittent use of an air tool, this one is the only one that kicks on and the only one that does any work. This tiny one, it only kicks on when the pressure goes, well, maybe 1 bar lower or something. And so in practice, what that means is the smaller one is only used when I use air tools that consume a lot of air. And that was not my intention from the beginning. That's just the way it fell out. And actually, I'm very happy with that because I don't need both of them running when the tank just needs to fill up. Like, say I've used some compressed air for like cleaning a carburetor or whatever, and then the tanks need to fill up. well, I only need one of them to do that. And so the bigger one, like I said, only kicks on when it's necessary. So that is actually, yeah, I'm very pleased with this system. And it took me a bit of fidgeting to get all the connections right. I had to order some, well, actually I got some fittings along with some tools and whatnot, but yeah, so, and it took me a while to get it to not leak as well. But yeah, the fitting I ordered specifically is this one, and the reason for that is, I don't know if I mentioned that, but the white line that you can see coming off of that is what I use for blowing air. So I've got one line for blowing air and one for air tools. And one major thing that's missing, which some of you might have noticed, is that I don't have a water separator. And I've noticed that I do get some water into my tools and like coming through the compressed air as well. So I've ordered one that is arriving tomorrow, and I hope the water that has been getting into my tools hasn't caused any permanent damage. I've lubricated them thoroughly anyway, so, but I'm not too experienced with that, so I hope it's not caused any major issues. And that one is going to go on this line, and when I need to blow air without any water in it, I'm just going to use that one for blowing air as well. That's how I'm going to use it, and then eventually I'm going to order a second one. But I wanted to see if the first one is any good first. So yeah, that's a lot more information than you needed, I guess. But yeah, that's how I built my system. And now I've never got any problems with air. Well, with having not enough air for my tools. I don't think I mentioned the specs on the smaller one, but it's not like these smaller ones, you get lots of different specs on them. This one is the bigger one. It's got a 2.5 horsepower engine, and I think it emits 180 litres per minute of air. So that means I've got 180 plus 280, which equals 460, doesn't it? And that has been plenty for anything that I've needed so far. And also I've got 250 litre tanks and 124 litres, so I've got 124 litres of air. And the major reason for doing it this way is not just that it's fun and cool to make your own setup, but it's also very cost effective. This one I got for 120 euros second hand, and this one I got for free, and this one I got for 15 euros. So, and well, some fittings and whatnot, but yeah, all in all, you can realize that this is a very, very cheap setup for me. And in reality, I've actually got a 5.5 horsepower compressor, but I've got the benefit of having only 3 horsepower running for most of the time. So yeah, that was it for that. Cheers.